Hi everyone, Miriam Tori here. Today I'm going to do a presentation on Chapter 9, The Blood and Victory, World War I, from Jürgen. So let's dive into it. Okay, so let's start with the main historical events and developments that were covered. So the first one was the World War I and its transformative impact on both military, strategic, and industrial development. So the war gave birth to very key innovations like metal tanks that started to roll out with mechanized transport, with automobile playing an important role in the socio-economic development. So in addition to the emergence of air power, for instance, certain battles like the First Battle of the Marne, the Battle of the Somme, and the Battle of the Amiens are highlighted. So besides the role of the naval warfare, particularly the Battle of Jutland and Britain's reliance on oil for its naval fleet, those are significant. So during this period, Persia adopted to oil exploration, which marked the importance of Anglo-Persian Oil Company, and the competition between the Anglo-Persian and Royal Dutch Shell are explored. So while the oil became a critical strategic resource for military power, and Persia's oil fields were also essential to Britain's military and economic strategy. So now let's talk about the economic impact on these events. Jürgens tend to emphasize how the economic role of oil manipulated several aspects during World War I by discussing some of the factors that determined the outcome of the war, particularly in terms of the introduction of motorized transportation, particularly trucks that helped the mobility of warfare equipment and cars, giving the Allies a logistical advantage over Germany, which relied heavily on railways. So the war also demonstrated the strategic necessity of controlling oil resources, as illustrated by Britain's dependence on Persian oil for its naval fleet. So the Anglo-Persian Oil Company growth was driven by wartime demand, which is also reflected by the increasing economic importance of oil. So the company's transition from a simple crude producer to an integrated oil company also exemplified the broader economic shift towards oil as a crucial commodity for both military and civilian purposes. The Inter-Allied Petroleum Conference in February 1918, which effectively pooled and distributed oil supplies, U.S. exports accounted for about 80% of the Allies' petroleum requirements. So the conference served as a purpose of coordinating Standard Oil of New Jersey and the Royal Dutch Shell, along with convoy system that reduced the U-boat threats and helped manage the oil supply crisis. Now, what geopolitical implications did this have? So geopolitically, the events depicted had significant consequences, particularly in the context of British imperialism and the competition between European powers, while British military emphasized on securing oil fields in Persia and Mesopotamia from the perspective of geopolitical rivalry between Britain and the Ottoman Empire, funded by Germany. So the capture of Basra and later on Baghdad by British forces was driven by the need to protect oil resources, underlying the growing importance of the Middle East in global geopolitics, notably the rivalry between Britain's Anglo-Persian Oil Company and Royal Dutch Shell also had a geopolitical dimensions. So Greenway's vision of making Anglo-Persian the oil champion of the British Empire reflects broader imperial purposes. While the control of oil resources and infrastructure became a key element of British military strategy, with oil being a central aspect in both global power dynamics and post-war planning. As the war progressed, the U.S. became the primary oil supplier to the Allies, surging from 266 million barrels in 1914 to 335 million by 1917. So just 3 years later. So this is even with the increased supply constraint emerge. You can see that there was an increase. So the key figures and companies and their roles were, firstly, Winston Churchill played a crucial role as the First Lord of the Admiralty. He championed the development of the tank, which served as a major backup to uphold the power of countries in the war. And also, he advocated for the British Navy's conversion to oil, which provided strategic advantages during the war. Secondly, Ernest Swinston, a British colonel credited with conceptualizing the tank as a solution to trench warfare. And that was followed by Charles Greenway, who served as the managing director of Anglo-Persian Oil Company. He converted the company into an integrated oil enterprise and positioned it as a central player in Britain's oil strategy, with an intent to acquire British Petroleum, and its rivalry with Royal Dutch Shell were critical in shaping the post-war oil industry. So fourth, Marcus Samuel, who is the founder of Shell, secured oil supplies for Britain during the war and providing fuel for TNT production and managing global oil logistics. Lastly, Royal Dutch Shell, the oil company, was vital to Britain's war effort, acting as a quartermaster for oil supplies globally, despite accusations for disloyalty from